Hey folks, Tim Miller here, and I'm sure everybody is aware that there was a horrific attack in Moscow yesterday, hundreds dead, more wounded, the entire structure, the roof collapse, incendiary devices. A four-man ISIS team is claiming responsibility. Now, folks, I don't have to remind you that this type of hatred and evil, really, that we saw on October 7th and now in Moscow, is coming here. Am I sounding an alert? You betcha. Now, listen carefully and please like, share, and subscribe this video. This is a clear warning. I'm noticing that all the networks are reporting ISIS claimed responsibility. They're not telling you the statement that ISIS made. Here it is. They published a statement yesterday that basically says, in quotes, fighters of the Islamic State attacked a large gathering of Christians in the city of Kranatsk on the outskirts of the Russian capital, Moscow, and killed and wounded hundreds and caused great destruction to the place before retreating to their bases in peace. Now, why isn't the media reporting it? Why are they leaving Christians out? Because the reality is they don't want to report that ISIS targeted Christians, because that would cause a lot of concern in the United States, where there are a lot of Christians and Jews. And so, folks, I want you to watch this again. And again, I left all the violent part out so that, YouTube has no problems. But I want you to picture yourself in a theater, mass place, and then this happens. I want you to think about you being there. I want you to think about now you're there and your children are there. And this is how it goes. Watch carefully, folks. They obviously screening points were worthless. This group is acting as military trained. Watch that magazine reload. And then they're throwing incendiary devices, folks. You see, this is not about just doing an active shooter, scooting out and getting out. This is a well-trained group. Now you're caught in this in this theater, and think about what you would do. How would you respond? What a horrible place to be. Now, why do you say this, Tim? Well, number one, if you're a Christian, you better listen. Because here's the reality. These folks have come through the southern border and they're here. We know that they're here. We know they're capable of an attack. The FBI director, I've said on previous videos, red lights warning, these attacks are coming. So if you're involved in church security, I would ask you, how are you going to deal with this? And folks, here's why I'm saying all these things. We need to wake up, America. The battle's here. What happened in Moscow is going to happen here. I don't know when. I'm concerned it could be sooner than we think. And oh, by the way, it could be multiple attacks, because 4 of them did that great a damage and got away. Now, here's something you probably didn't know either. Large group of people, big auditorium, maybe even sounds like a mega church to me, or a public venue. No armed security. None. Not that they were going to be able to do much unless they were equipped right, trained right, prepared right, which obviously they weren't. But they were the first to die. I saw in one report that the bad guys used their vehicles to get away. So, folks, I've got to sound the alarm, I hope in a good way, that now is the time to prepare. If you are not thinking about what attacks like this, how they could influence your family, even if you weren't there, can they influence your family? How you would be prepared to respond if you were in that building. You know, we talk a lot on this channel about personal safety, protective measures. We talk a lot about that, but are you practicing them? Are you alert and aware? If you heard gunshots, massive numbers of gunshots in a lobby, would you know what to do? Would you know where to go? Have you identified? We always talk about this. 4 things you need to think about everywhere you go. The first is, where are the exits? Because folks, if you, as you saw people just hunkering down, literally waiting to be slaughtered in that auditorium, what if they were able to move using maybe concealment cover down the aisles and out the back of the stage? Are there exits there? You betcha. So number 1, where are the exits? Number 2, what are people doing? Did anybody notice this group outside before the attack? Here's what we know about terrorist organizations. They always do pre-operational surveillance. So did the security forces, did anybody have indications? There are reports out here that the U.S. intelligence agencies notified Moscow that there could be an imminent terrorist strike coming. Now, you know, the whole game of distrust between Moscow and Washington and whatever. I don't even know what our politics are anymore. I just shake my head. It doesn't seem like the United States has a clear foreign policy. But anyway, we tried to share information. And let me tell you, having worked in Homeland Security, depending on the nature and the specifics of the threat information, it may be actionable, it may be not. Maybe they said, hey, an imminent attack is going to occur. They just didn't know where. And so, you know, what do the Russian authorities do with that? But with that said, with forewarning that there could be a major attack at a very public event, it probably would have been prudent to put some trained military law enforcement assets there. Because let me be clear, folks, and as many, you know, we assess everything from Fortune 500 companies. We work with houses of worship. We work with schools. And let me just tell you, folks, most people in the U.S., it is what it is, have their head in the sand. It's not going to happen here, Tim. You're probably right based on statistics. But if it does, God help us. Because this, folks, was a massacre. This group, ISIS, has made it crystal clear, which is why we went after them with all of our military assets, and the sole purpose was to destroy them. Right now in the West, in Israel, the purpose of going after Hamas after we watched what they did, which was horrible times 10 compared to Moscow, they're going after them to eradicate them. And I fully support that. But folks, we're not ready in the United States. We're just not taking this seriously. We're not considering how would we respond to major attacks against our infrastructure. What would happen if you had to go without food for 10, 20, 30 days because supply chains had been attacked, disrupted? What about power? What about water? And then what about your ability to defend yourself? Because, folks, I guarantee you, if you don't have a plan before you go in that auditorium, it's probably not going to go well for you. And so I know this is one of those that I'm passionate about because, you know what, I care about my brothers and sisters in this country. I fought to defend this country. It's sad watching it just deteriorate because the reality is we're letting folks just like this walk across the border. I can't figure out the why our leaders are exposing us to such vulnerability. It's a new world. But let's go back to this video one more time because I do want to talk about some things here that I think are helpful. And number one, as you watch the gunmen, notice what they're doing. They're focusing at the same location ahead of themselves, which means if you're peripheral to them, that may be the time to move. They're not paying attention to what's behind them. Now, if it happens here and you're armed and you have maybe some cover, firing from behind them is a golden opportunity. It's a golden opportunity, but remember, they're wearing vests. So portions of their body's going to be protected. And that's where, again, beforehand, are your skills developed, polished, and can you use them under pressure? Because let me tell you, you get into a situation like that and your heart is going to beat out of your chest. Your blood pressure goes up, adrenaline's flowing. You're going into tunnel vision naturally, which could be dangerous because you need to see what's going on around you. But I just want to ask you, those guys are there. Maybe it's the Walmart. Maybe it's whatever. What do you do with that? Well, notice that they're both faced ahead. Interestingly enough, one is probably, based on this photo, the bomb guy, and the other has an AK-47, and he's firing at everybody he can, including children. Folks, these folks do not care about anything except killing. That's what their goal is. They want to die. They want to get to whatever they think they're going to and be rewarded. That's a pretty interesting ideology, but that's what you're up against. So they continue to move. They're moving. They're looking at a 180 degree in front. And folks, I got to tell you, if you're not prepared, if you're not thinking, watch, that's a tactical reload. Those folks have training. And so, folks, let me just assure you that in the midst of all this chaos is not the time to figure it out. Now you're in the theater. Notice nobody's moving. Everybody's down. Is that a strategy to win? Probably not. Moving to the end of the aisle, trying to gain concealment, maybe get to the front. Those are all things, folks, that if we think about it ahead of time, when it happens, we're going to have emergency files that we can go to. And quite frankly, that's what we train. We train organizations in crisis preparation and response based on the latest science. How do you survive an encounter like this? And so as you think about where you go every day, is it possible that you could be in the middle of something like this? And here's what's sad, very sad. Security had no weapons, nobody in the auditorium. You saw the screening. So that became a gun safe zone, didn't it? Oh, wait. A gun safe zone except for the ISIS terrorists. I can't believe they didn't obey the law and they brought guns in. Folks, this is why the entire mindset of not allowing you to protect yourself in situations like this is absolutely insane. And so let me wrap up by asking you this. This happened in Moscow, right? Yeah, on the other side. Didn't happen in a church. Oh, wait, I read you a statement that ISIS said, let me say it again, fighters of the Islamic State attacked a large gathering of Christians. This is their official release where they claim responsibility. Oh, what a shock that none of the news agencies are reporting this. I got this through a reporter. And quite frankly, if I hadn't gotten it from him, I wouldn't have known about it, and you likely wouldn't have known about it either. You know why? Because they don't want to expose you to the real dangers of where we're at. And let me just say this. I don't traffic in fear. I traffic in wisdom and preparation. And here's what I'm going to say to you folks. Now is the time to prepare, to train, to have a plan. If you don't have emergency response capability, meaning tourniquets, pressure band, can you imagine if you happen to have that in your car and you could run get it? Because it took a while for security services and ambulances, and that tourniquet could save a life. And if you had 4 or 5 of them, maybe 4 or 5 people would be alive today that aren't alive because they bled out. Do you have the ability to think tactically. And that's something else. A lot of folks ask us because we train firearms. Well, under the pressure of that, what's the best thing to do? I don't know, because you're going to have 100 different decision points in front of you. What I do know, establishing cover, firing from cover, and making sure that you're trained enough with that weapon to both fire and, if you have to do a combat reload. Oh, wait, Tim, I don't carry a spare magazine. Maybe I ought to think about that, because you get into a situation like this, you may need that second magazine just to keep them away from you. The other thing, folks, is the most important thing in all of this, and we train this, is that you've got to take control of your mind and body. And we speak two principles. Number one is you speak out loud, I can do this. I can do this. Why? Because your brain responds in the midst of a crisis to the commands you're giving your brain through your words. I got it. I can do it. Everybody get down, speak positive words. Then number two, you go into breathing to maintain control of your body. We call it box breathing. It's you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds. Well, you're going to do that in the middle of the crisis? Yeah. If you train yourself, if you train ahead of time, then you're going to be prepared for an event like this. If you don't, then you'll be one of those folks hiding in the auditorium, just hoping that somebody doesn't come in and slaughter your family right in front of your eyes. Folks, now is the time to prepare. This is coming to America. And if you're not prepared, please, please, please consider, ask yourself, what would I have done if I was in that theater? Because unfortunately, this is the extreme of violence, but we're seeing violence just kind of everywhere around the spectrum. We're seeing kids, beaten down and almost killed in what used to be school backyard playground fights. Now they're becoming fatal. And we have to ask ourselves, what's happening that our country is slipping so fast? But let me encourage you, especially if you're a Christian, if you're listening to this and you are a Christian, now is the time to prepare. They're coming after you, not fear, fact. I just read you their statement. Those are their words, not mine. They've been coming after the Jews for a long time. They hate Christians equally. They're coming after Christians. They're not ashamed. They're proclaiming it to the world. And guess what? The United States is a very soft target when it comes to Christians here. So ask yourself the question, what would I do? What do I need to do to prepare for an event like this, or just protecting myself and my family in general? And then number three, do it. Don't just ask questions. Don't just look at the video and go, oh, that's really helpful, information, Tim. No, do something about it. Because here's what I know, folks. If there were 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 folks that were trained and armed, whether it be security services or average citizen, it could have made a big difference. What we saw was wholesale slaughter with nothing to stop them. It's coming here. I don't know when. I hope it never does. I pray it never does, but I am confident it will. And so, folks, think about what we've talked about on this video. I know this is a heavy video. I get it. But folks, we all need it. We need each other in this country. If we've ever needed each other, now is the time that we need each other even worse. And so let me encourage you, please like, share, subscribe this video. I'm putting it out right away so that we can get it out there. And folks, I can't ask you enough. Please comment, please like, please share, please send this to your church leadership. I did a podcast just for pastors with Tony Perkins based on a report from 2018 2023 that suggests that violent incidents directed at churches have increased 800%. So churches, you need to be paying attention. We don't want to fight World War II in today's world. And that's kind of what we do in a lot of different security venues, but especially in church security. Well, I got a guy that's got a concealed carry, so we're good. Well, let me ask you, how long do you think a team of 2 or 3 would take, trained guys with weapons, sophisticated weapons, to defeat that? And I'm not saying, please hear me, I'm not saying everything should be an armed camp. But let me tell you, I am saying where groups of people are gathered, you better think about your security, because those people are hoping and praying that leadership is thinking about this, the very real threat, and they're taking appropriate actions. And if you're not, then maybe now's a great time to consider it differently. So I hope this is helpful. Again, like, share, subscribe, and we'll keep you abreast on this and other things as they come available. But in the meantime, please stay safe. Please stay alert and aware. And above all, please think through what you would do if, and then just ask yourself that question for home security wherever you go. And then, are you equipped and trained to do what's going to be needed? So hope and pray you stay safe out there. God bless you. We'll see you next time.